Okay, looks like we've got our panel out here and we are going to kick this off. So welcome to our Mapbox tech session, custom data pipelines. Can I just get a thumbs up from the panel that you can see my slides and hear me talk? All right, perfect. Okay, some logistics before we get started. Captions are available in multiple languages, so you should see a captions option at the bottom of your menu. You can just click that to select any captions that you might need in the language that you need. Please submit questions through the Zoom Q&A. Again, there should be a button called Q&A. Some people have been using the chat. You can use the chat, but it is a little harder for us to keep track of it. If you do it in the Q&A, we will definitely see it and can definitely work to answer it. Keep attending these sessions. The more sessions you attend, the bigger opportunity you have to win some Mapbox swag. And Mapbox swag is very nice. I've always been proud of it. I want maybe a little surprise of what it is, but keep attending and more chance to win the swag. And you can also discover past build sessions or see what's coming up in the Zoom lobby for the event, or go to mapbox.com/build. So for our session today, I just wanted to introduce our panel real quick. We have Matthew Anthony, who is the Maps product manager. Matthew is going to be here helping talk about custom data pipelines, along with Joel, who's also a Maps product manager. That's Joel Groen. And then we're also here with a customer. We're extremely grateful to have a customer with us today. So thank you, Charles Skelton, who's the GIS lead for Polaris, is going to give us like a real life use case to look at. And then finally, we're here with Chris Byers, who's our head of search product, who's going to talk a little bit about some of our data products and how it works into the pipelines. And with that said, I'm going to pass this on to Joel.
Hey, everybody, and welcome. If you've been attending other sessions, you have heard us talk about your ability to customize the look and feel of a Mapbox map. In today's session, we're going to expand on that theme and help you understand customization from a data perspective. So how you can customize the data that's on a Mapbox map. And we're going to do that in these three areas. To start, we're going to hear from one of our partners and learn about their custom data pipeline and give you a real-world example. Next, we'll preview some features and tools that we're building that would make customization easier and even more powerful. And then lastly, we'll share some of the custom data sets that Mapbox has curated and make available to you to add to your maps as well. It's going to go fast. We've only got less than a half hour, so we are going to jump right in. Let's get started. To start, I'd like to introduce Charles Skelton, who is head of GIS at Polaris, one of Mapbox's partners. Charles has been at Polaris for almost a decade and relies heavily on custom data to share with their users. So welcome, Charles.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's jump right in. To start, maybe you could tell us a little bit about Polaris and why custom map data is important for your customers.
Sure. So Polaris, we're a power sports manufacturer. That's on-road, off-road, and marine. The purpose for off-road in particular is making sure people are riding where they belong. Majority of the trails, especially in the Midwest and the East Coast, 80% of those trails are actually on private land. Making sure people are going where they need to be and where they should not be is essential for these private parties to participate in these trail networks. To get into a little bit about Polaris, we got into the Fortune 500, just squeaked in, what, 2018, excuse me. As I mentioned, on-road, off-road, and just relatively recently, we've got into the marine world as well. So we've got Bennington, Godfrey, and Hurricane. Where we are utilizing Mapbox is within Ride Command. And Ride Command ecosystem, app, web, in-vehicle display, and web services that tie the three platforms together. You know, when I started 10 years ago, It was very basic and essentially just a map, right? Where the heck am I and where can I ride my toy legally? This is now expanded into real-time alerts on your vehicle's health, maintenance, and a number of other horns and whistles. But what's neat is that all that extra goodies is tied to the map. Right? The centerpiece is the map itself. We currently are hosting on Mapbox points, lines, and polygons. What's notable is we've got 1.2 million miles of legal riding opportunities. That's growing every day. Got polygons for open ride areas, like ELM land and desert, where there isn't designated routes, but in this territory, you can freely ride. We're using the heat map capability for their symbology, using some of the track rides only in those open ride areas. POIs, we've got hundreds of thousands of businesses, but the 45K that I'm referring here is where do I park? Where's the trailhead? Are there restaurants? What's scenic? Is there a picnic area here? Things that when you're in a ride are relevant to the rider. And then we'll get into it a little bit more here, but parcel data in particular is very heavy data set that we leverage Mapbox tiles for.
Great, thanks, Charles. Yeah, let's move on and take a look at how you use Mapbox to actually build your custom data pipeline. Yeah, so if you could walk us through what we're looking at here, that would be fantastic.
Great. So yes, we're using MTS for the large data sets, trails and parcels. The flow chart below here will be referring to trails, which I'll get into in a moment. Not only are Mapbox able to host this data for us, but gives us some flexibility on what zoom level and when do we generalize using the recipe that is part of the MPS. Timely data is super important in this field. Bridges close down, trails get rerouted. We need to be able to distribute information quickly to our users. Generally, we have a nightly cadence, but if there's an emergency or we get word that, hey, this group ride's going on a legislature tour, a lot of government officials go on group rides to get funding for trails and so on and so forth. If something changes, they can contact us and we can update their changes within 20 minutes and have that disseminated to the users. So when it comes to the trail data, as well as a number of other data sets, the heavy lifting is done by the GIS team. We've got a small team that we have hundreds of sources, think DOTs, federal agencies, administrative, it kind of depends on where you are in the country, but everybody organizes their data and management differently. Anyway, large changes, the data set is processed by the GIS team and piped to the trail database. We also have vetted trail managers. These folks are the ones, boots on the ground, that are blazing new trails, maintaining trails, removing trees after a storm. These folks are vetted, and we have a separate web application that they're able to add, alter, delete contents in their designated area. All that's piped to the database. And then we are utilizing Jenkins to pull that trail data from MDB or from the database that's ultimately pulled into a map tile, MDB tiles. Excuse me, that's pulled in as a GeoJSON line delimited. We've got a PowerShell script that's running curl commands, utilize the MPS. So the source is the GeoJSON line delimited. We use MTS to get that hosted on Mapbox. That tile set is then utilized in a number of our different tiles. Each of our product lines has a different branded look to the map. A lot of the underlying data is the same, but we have things looking differently using the styles. And what's great about the tile set is the moment that that's updated, that's then disseminated to our app and web clients. One bullet point there is offline tiles, which is a huge benefit and one of the catalysts for our use of Mapbox back in the day is that they have offline tiles. If you download an offline tile, which makes good sense if you're in the boonies, a lot of our riders are out in the woods where they're getting away from connectivity. They can download that data. It's all available on their client. When they do get into connectivity again, any changes that may have taken place within that tile will be updated without them having to intervene, which is huge.
Charles, I'm seeing the screenshot on the top right. I see this Tileset Explorer. I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you use that and maybe even other Mapbox tools like Studio in your workflow.
Sure. So yeah, in the upper right-hand corner, we've got a screenshot of the tile set. What's nice within Mapbox Studio is you're able to explore that data that you just uploaded, right? So you get a visualization. Is this what I was expecting to see? You can click on any of those, in this case, trails, and get the list of properties associated with them. Did everything transfer properly? Is everything looking right? There's been a couple times where we were seeing oddities, and this was a great way of exploring the data and finding out what might have gone awry. You know, I get sight on what we actually posted. From there, then obviously this tile set data is a source to a layer within a map style, and that's where we give the different classifications. You know, the different symbology based off classifications of the trail. Is this side by side only, ATV? Is this snow? We have means of representing what that data is actually stored for.
Awesome. Thanks, Charles. One last question for you. We'd love to hear a little bit about what you like about our partnership, Polaris working with Mapbox.
Yeah, so we were an early adopter of Mapbox technology even before it was Mapbox. Originally, it was an open source project. We actually leveraged the in-vehicle display. The technology even then was solid, and hence we started utilizing it. Presently, we're using Mapbox's latest SDK for app and web. One of the major factors and why developers are a huge fan of Mapbox is the documentation is excellent. It's updated regularly. Outdated things are archived and you don't get lost with Google searches looking at outdated data, or rather outdated documentation. The map style UI is very intuitive. The filters are relatively simple to figure out. Everything is organized easily, and they are continually updating and providing new functionality to the style editor. One of the big things recently that I'm excited about is the ability to copy and paste layers from one style to another. Up until recently, it was a manual effort, either doing clicking through the UI or needing to alter the JSON file that the file ultimately is, which has human error potential. So I'm really excited about that new feature. Also, the tile rendering speed, excellent. We are hosting a crap load of data, and this is posted quickly and seamlessly as people are scrolling, and from tile to tile, the user doesn't perceive anything different. And then the other bit is that we can host data there. The storage is cheap, and ultimately the cost is with the processing. So depending upon what cadence and how often you're needing to post data up, it's a very affordable solution.
Awesome. Thanks, Charles. I know we're running a little bit behind on time, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for partnering with us. Polaris has been such a great partner. We love having and sort of open line with our customers and just using that to help shape our roadmap, our understanding of, the pain points that you go through. So yeah, thanks again, Charles.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm gonna hand it off to Greg now to talk a little bit about what's coming. Greg, you can take it away.
Thank you, Matthew. Okay, so I'm going to sort of quickly touch on some developments with Mapbox Tiling Service, MTS, and also some things that are coming. So this year we did launch MTS support for raster data. So anyone familiar with the tiling service knows that initially you could only tile vector data. So now you can tile raster. And this is important because when you take raster data in and raster data out, you preserve the numerical values of that raster data. And it enables cool things like dynamic colorization, runtime styling options, and even like you can query the data on the user side or query the data on your side. So this is a quote you can see from a customer 060 that is currently using the functionality. We also are introducing clustering for MTS. This is something that is a sort of a relatively small change, but something that I know a lot of customers are excited about. So you can cluster, circle, and heat map data visualizations at low zoom levels without dropping miss features. You can see an example here on the right. So now you don't need to pre-cluster your source data with like a legacy third-party tool. So this could help save time and potentially costs, and it's just much more convenient now that the functionality is supported by MTS. Next up, incremental updates, beta coming in Q4. So now when the beta hits, you will be able to incrementally update certain features in a tile set instead of reprocessing the entire tile set. Another feature that our customers have definitely been asking about. So it decreases the end-to-end data update times, which conversely speeds up MTS job processing times and could potentially reduce MTS costs because you're not updating the whole tile set, just that subset that you need. And finally, MTS Data Explorer. We do also have a beta coming soon. This is going to be a simpler, more intuitive way to preview and manage your custom map data. So we think you're going to be able to visualize new data before processing it. So actually see what goes in and then see what comes out. You'll be able to visualize changes to existing data before processing it. So if you're going to make a change to a tile set or a visualization that already exists, you could preview what the change does. And then you will also be able to generally estimate what your costs are going to be before processing. Again, these 3 bullet points you see here, this is feedback we've gotten from our customers that we are working to integrate into the tiling service. And I'm going to pass it off to Chris.
Right. Thanks, Greg. So we talked a little bit about incorporating your own custom data into Mapbox services, hosting that data, processing it. But Mapbox also offers our own custom data, proprietary data that we create and can provide to you to easily incorporate into your maps so that you don't have to necessarily do all the work necessary to create, canonical data sets that you need to be able to throw on the map. 3 of these are our boundaries data set, which is our global geopolitical, statistical, legislative, postal, and local data set of boundaries, polygons that you can throw on the map and interact with. So if you're building core pleth maps, if you're building interactive area interaction maps, boundaries is what you need. For movement, that's our first-party data set of mobility data that we build off of about 750 million active users every month globally, and can track levels of activity around the globe at a 100-meter bin granularity. Traffic is based on that same input of first-party data for Mapbox. And instead of tracking activity, where movement does in terms of volume, it tracks speed. So you can see how fast traffic is moving at 5-minute intervals around the world and in historical data as well. So we have a few customers using this actively. Hyperplan uses our flat file data set for analysis in their process, looking at agricultural data and understanding how that relates to the various administrative areas in France and the rest of Europe. And Pyramid Analytics is using our boundaries data to assist in their Gen BI process to be able to do core pleth mapping and analysis within their platform in an automated fashion using an LLM, which actually is our next item. We have the data set itself is built such that it's canonical and clean, and you can easily incorporate your data with our boundaries data and other data sets. It makes working with this data in an AI environment very easy because the APIs are simple to use and the data is excellent and clean and canonical, working with administrative agencies to make sure that it's absolutely correct. We had a recent update to boundaries at the beginning of the year, offering our flat file data set. This lets you bring in the raw data for boundaries and use that in your internal ETLs or analytics. And then we also had 2 updates this year, updating Oceania, Africa, and now Asia with our recent release. For movement, one of the great use cases for this is site selection. A lot of our folks are using this for competitive intelligence or infrastructure management as well. And of course, traffic. This is a global data set, and we have both a live and historical mode for it, down to tertiary and residential streets. All right, passing it off to Q&A if we have a little bit of time for that.
Thank you, Chris, and all the panelists. Unfortunately, we were running a little late on this one, so we aren't going to have time to answer the questions live. But if you did ask a question, it looks like we were actually able to answer all of them typed out in the Q&A. So if you did ask a question, please go to back to the Q&A box where you should be able to see a response to your question. Additionally, if you have other questions or if you didn't really get the answer that you want, we are hosting Ask Me Anything sessions, I believe on Friday, where you can have the opportunity to come, ask these questions, get answered. You have a direct line to a lot of the people on the product teams and marketing here at Mapbox. So your opportunity is there. Again, I want to extend a thank you to our panelists who did a great job. Particularly Charles, thank you so much for joining us and for really bringing this to life in a way, that we couldn't just with slides and bullet points. So really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see everyone on another build session.